Well, I guess we're going to get started. Hello, everybody. I'm Kinsey. I know most of you. But if you don't know me, I am the founder of a group called FayettePy, which I couldn't remember when it started, but apparently it was in 2014, around September. And Joseph and Blake asked me to come give maybe like a little bit of a history overview. And I'm a just total nostalgia addict, so I love going through old photos and stuff. There's a picture of me, in case you can't see what I look like, cheesing with an app that I built. I usually describe myself as a Python developer that accidentally started a company and got into the business world. I have 20 years of experience in software engineering, most of it with Python, about 16 or 17 of it. I started in a really unorthodox place, which was the news media industry. My first real programming job was at the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette in Little Rock. And then after that, I went into consulting with a firm called Celerity in Washington, D.C., and got my first taste of working on large-scale media applications. So our clients were like Discovery Channel, PBS, Smithsonian. I was a PBS assigned engineer for several years, working on big video encoding projects. So basically like their entire back catalog of PBS videos. At some point, I started to specialize in the world of geospatial and applied data science. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But I founded FayettePy in 2014. These days, I am the CTO of a company called Linux. I founded a consulting firm called Lofty that I ran for about 10 years. And I just recently launched an app called Dispersed. So that's my new little side hobby project. And I'm based in the area and down in Fayetteville. So this is my day job. We build a automated platform for doing visual. It's a computer vision based AI for inspection of subsurface defects in bridge decks, if that makes sense. So what you're seeing here is subsurface delamination, where the wear surface of the bridge is delaminating and debonding from its structure underneath. So these are not potholes, this is subsurface. And so that's my day job, is I get to do this cool geospatial AI stuff. And we are not currently hiring, but we are fundraising, and then hopefully we are hiring afterward. This is Dispersed. This is an app for finding dispersed campsites on public land here in the US. I'm a big fan of vehicle-based camping. I've built out started with a motorhome, built out a camper van, built out an overlanding Jeep and trailer setup. Anyway, there's a gap here. I started with ingesting all of the federally available public data and putting that into a database. And this was actually my first foray into vibe coding. I don't really do a lot of mobile apps, but over the summer, I was like, I really want to see what it's like to do this from scratch in like a language and framework that I'm not super familiar with. I don't write a lot of TypeScript, don't do a lot of React Native. And it's been a huge blast, and it got me thinking for the first time in what does an AI, like generative AI first workflow look like for software development, so that I could bring that back to our team. And now we are totally AI first in all of our development at our day job, which has been a huge, huge improvement for our productivity. But in 2014, I had a job and I quit it. And I guess it was probably sort of naive. I had a terrible CEO. I had taken a job as a senior developer for a company in the health and fitness space in New York City. And my CEO was a total jerk. And I said, I don't think I'm gonna work for people anymore. I'm gonna go start freelancing. And then I learned really, really quickly that freelancing is hard, especially when you're trying to reproduce a senior software engineer's salary. I had done a lot of freelancing on the side, like little hobby projects and stuff, but reproducing your full income turns out to be a bit difficult. But through this process, I had started speaking at large developer conferences. So I spoke at PyCon 1 year, and I spoke 2 years at DjangoCon, and I really loved going to these cities that had these very dense communities. You'd meet people that were like, yeah, we go to this meetup group, and all the cool stuff that was coming out of that. And back here in Fayetteville, there really wasn't. There was like NWA, what was it called? It was like Cocoa Heads. It was an iOS development group that then kind of expanded, and like you had to pay dues. Like the whole model was wrong. Okay. And so I said, this is lame, and there's no one doing Python here, and I'm really into Python. I feel like I kind of know my shit about it. I'm going to start a Python meetup group. And so I did. I started FayettePy, and I started it on meetup.com. It was really popular at the time. That's where all this kind of stuff was happening. I went into it with zero game plan, but I was like totally invigorated by this idea. I just quit my job. So I was like, oh, I like jumping off a cliff without a parachute and figuring it out. And I remember stressing about like, how do I get a place for the people to meet, and like having to call the restaurant and be like, can we get the back room, and just figuring it out. But I didn't have that much of a plan because community building is really hard. And I found that out by hosting our first event. It's got the laser. It was like so intuitive. Thank you for the clicker. I knew right where the pointer was. And this was my content. It was, let's just all introduce ourselves. We met up at Apple Blossom Brewing, which is now Flyway. Let's get together for drinks and introduce ourselves. And that was our first meetup. It was a lot of fun. It was a social event. And at that, I met a couple of people that I'm still friends with to this day from that very first event. And we decided at the time, the format for this, we're going to try and meet twice a month, and we would do a social event, and then we would do some other type of event. And these are actually some of our first ones, I think, here. But you can see community building's hard. We ended up just doing the social event over and over and over. And so once a month, we went and had beers. I think we did one project showcase. We all met at a coffee shop and showed projects off. Were you there for that, Evan?
I think you did one in your office, actually. That wasn't your
That was later. Yeah, this was at Red Kite over on Crossover Road. And so we did that, and that's kind of how it ran for almost a year. I think I started this in September of 2014. I didn't have much work as a freelancer, but I met some consultants. I met some contractors that I brought in to help me with a project. And when you don't have a lot of work, you do what everyone else does, which is you dream about what you're going to do when you do have a lot of work. And across the hall, I had a 10 by 10 office in downtown Fayetteville. Across the hall, there was a tax accountant. And she was like, hey, you're freelancing. Are you incorporated as a company? And I said, no. And she's like, well, there's probably some tax advantages if you ever want to do that. So I started a company called Lofty Labs LLC, which is a name that I picked out of a hat. Didn't mean anything at the time. And suddenly I owned a company, but it was just me doing freelance work and occasionally having some subcontractors. A little while later, things kind of started to pick up. And I had a couple of subcontractors, and I was thinking I might hire an employee. And I was like, oh my God, I think I might actually have a company. So then I did the next thing that someone does when they think they own a company, and you buy a bunch of t-shirts with the logo on it. So we bought a bunch of t-shirts, but the whole time I was thinking about this FayettePy thing, which had just turned into a once a month drinking event, and how we could actually start to build community there. And then selfishly, I thought I might find business there. I might be able to recruit talent there. So let's do this thing. And we hosted our first ever lecture style event, which we apparently couldn't even program as a full Python talk, because I gave a talk on Flask and Ryan Hebert gave a talk on Rust, which was actually pretty cool. It was the first time I'd ever heard Rust. Put on our fresh Lofty Lab shirt. This was Paige and I had been dating for 3 months at the time. She's now the mother of my 8-year-old child and my wife. She hand-painted signs for the meetup. We hung them up at the Pryor Center. And this was in July of 2015, so almost a full year after I started it. So there, at this point, I was probably 100 people in the group, but we got really good turnout. I mean, this was a great crowd, and I recognized a ton of people in this crowd. Most significantly, though, this gentleman right here, is that the first time we met Blake at a FayettePy? Did we meet at the Brews and Bites? Okay, I wasn't sure. I knew it was right around then. So there's me. giving my talk. Blake was in the crowd. If you see yourself in there, be sure to point it out. And I guess we really hit it off. Blake had, I went and did some sleuthing on the Meetup website. Blake had just started FayetteVille.js maybe 2 months before this, okay? I don't want to say that I inspired him, but that was July, so in August, we did a co-meetup. I had kind of forgotten about this. I find it kind of ties back to the theme today, right? That we got together. Of course, we had brews and bites. They had closures and cocktails. Community building is really hard. Now, we all know JavaScript is an abomination. But these guys were doing crazy shit. Like a PHP implementation of Angular? Did you give that talk? Wes Dean did, okay. So these guys were wild. But apparently I endorsed it because we hosted them at Lofty Labs at our office on the Pryor Center. I will say that over the years, I think it's very clear that Blake did a better job of programming content than I did, because we had a lot of brews and bites. But you guys had some hard times as well. Okay, you went through some spells because community building is hard. And when Joseph and Blake asked me to come talk about this, I said, how do I make this interesting and more than just Casey going through his photo albums and reminiscing about stuff? But that's the theme that I kept coming back to. One thing that wasn't hard was finding places to host us. That's always been kind of a blessing. We met at Field Agent a bunch. I see Ryan, I see Tyrell. I was hoping Tyrell would be here. Alan Fraley, who works with me still to this day at Linux. A lot of events hosted at our office, but yeah, we rebranded Lofty Labs to Lofty at a certain point, but Field Agent, Tata Consulting Services, when that was still a big thing, hosted us a couple times. Rockfish, which then became VML, then became, I don't even know if that's still a thing anymore, hosted us a lot at the global campus. CaseStack, SupplyPike, RevUnit, many, many more. And so I was always thankful. We always had a place to go and do meetups. I also have to mention that in the middle of this time at Lofty, we started a podcast called Friday Afternoon Deploy. Myself, Tyrell Dennison, and Alan Fraley. Blake was on by probably like the third episode, and I think probably appeared in at least 50% of the episodes in the first like 3 years. And so I consider Blake definitely to be a sort of a co-founder, co-host for that show. And this was really tied back to the community in a lot of ways. I mean, we had the Slack group that people were meeting in, but like we never promoted, this podcast eventually did gain national, not like notoriety, but like podcasts are really hard to figure out your subscription counts. But like, yeah, we had, I'm still friends with him on Facebook. I love that guy. If he, I wish, I can't even remember, yeah, it was good dude. He occasionally will send me pictures of women that he meets at certain nightclubs who are wearing Friday Afternoon Deploy merch that he buys for them. I swear to God, yeah. Anyway, it was a ton of fun. And, you know, we talked about it at the meetup groups, but it kind of grew on its own. And in my mind, we talked about Python a lot and how much of an abomination JavaScript is. Blake would usually be brought in to defend the language and the frameworks. I saw those things as kind of interconnected pieces. But community building was hard. I was trying to build and run a company. Several people in this crowd worked at that company with me. Running a podcast, starting a family, life. And by around 2018, I got super burned out after about 4 years of it. And I wish I had a better picture of Chrissy, but this is Chrissy Wainwright. She had joined the group back in 2015. I went and looked. She gave a talk on, she was on the board for the Plone Foundation, which was a CMS, open source CMS for Python. Chrissy stepped up and was like, hey, can I help co-host and co-organize this? And I said yes, because I was just like so done. We were like, you know, 10 months into not hosting a lecture event. And she brought a ton of energy to it. We went back to Project Showcase, and we had game nights, and we would do code golf and lightning talks. And she really kept FayettePy going for several years until 2020, when in-person events completely died. And honestly, FayettePy never really recovered. We did bring it back a little bit. We had a few events at Lofty's last office, one of our 10 offices or so. Back in 22 and 23, we had a few, but it never really fully recovered. And I was always kind of sad about it, but community building is really hard, and I was out of energy. I will say that I went back and looked, and at our peak, we had over 700 members in the group. We held 81 events over the course of about 10 years, which is 8 events a year. And that's almost an event every month for 10 years. And for that, I'm really proud. And that doesn't even factor in the outlier years of 2 years of COVID where we didn't meet at all. We tried one Zoom thing, and that was not good. You guys know. But I'm really, really proud of this numbers. The moral of the story is that I made so many great connections through that community, through building that community and participating in that community, and all the things that fell out of it. And it helped me build a business that has since closed. Closing that business was by far the hardest thing that I've ever had to do. But I missed the community that was there. And for those of you who know me, you know that I kind of disappeared for the last 2 years. So when Blake and Joseph told me that they wanted to start talking about these groups and bringing them back together, I was really excited. Selfishly, I was really excited to participate in them and not organize them, because community building is really, really hard. And that's really the lesson, the moral that I have for you. And so I appreciate you guys working on this and doing some work to bring it back together. I would love to see that be successful and participate with you all. I also want to talk to the members of the group and remind you, community building is really, really hard. And so these guys need your help to make this work. And I would say, I can't speak for everybody, but I think the hardest thing is always finding content. And so if you've got something you want to talk about or something you want to present about, and you go, I don't know if those people want to hear me talk about my thing, I guarantee you these guys are hurting for content and someone to come, because I know, because I did it for a long time. They are always hurting for content and looking for someone to come speak. So if you have some ideas, let them know and be a participant and help share it and get it out there, because I can just tell you firsthand from being involved in this for almost a decade, it is really, really challenging to get done. So thank you guys for doing some work to do that. I hope this was informative and fun to look back on for anyone that was there. But so yeah, thank you guys for doing some work to get this put back together, and I'm excited to see where it goes. Now I'll take questions.
When are you going to start organizing again?
I know. Good luck.
Nah. I will just do the thing. All right.
Would you do it again?
No.
Can you show the?
Do I know what?
I'm gonna do the same thing he did, and I'm just gonna talk a little bit about the opposite perspective and where Fayetteville.js came from and how I got started doing that and why we're here. Again, in case you can't see my face, there I am. I'm a full stack engineer, mostly JavaScript and defending JavaScript, as he mentioned, over 10 years, probably closing in 15 at this point. Self-taught, went to school for journalism, talk too much, dogs, tacos. I lead a team at a logistics company. Most of us have talked, so you know who I am. And if not, just ask. So similarly, in 2014, I had reached a point in my life where I'm, by the way, much older than I look. I had been working in a whole other industry for over 10 years. And I was very sad, and felt very stuck. I was working at Nielsen doing data analytics work. I wasn't coding. It was tech adjacent, all the databases, Hadoop and all the fun ETL work. But I kind of straddled that technical line and having meetings with customers, like vendors, and helping me figure out how we at Nielsen could help them make more money, basically. That's what it came down to, make line go up. But Nielsen I started off at a startup right out of college at this data company, which got a job through my friend's mom. It was my best friend's mom, and she was like, that guy knows something about computers. I'm gonna see if he wants a job. And I was like, cool, I would like a job, please. And I was pretty good at it. And I caught on really fast. And then our startup, which was maybe 30-ish people, got acquired by Nielsen. So that's how I ended up there. And slowly that startup culture, which was super fun, starts to get infected by enterprise things, and it seeps away, and the fun that you were having with those 30 people that you were so close to goes away. And so I was burnt out. I worked 60, 70-hour weeks pretty often. I was on call all the time. I was running a globally distributed team, so I had calls at 6 a.m. and I had calls at 7 p.m. Because I had people that worked for me in Australia and people that worked for me in the UK, and it was a lot. And I was burned out. And Nielsen, like I said, is a giant company, lots of politics. Lots of scratch my back, I'll scratch your back. And if you do that, maybe when it's time for a promotion, your name will come up. And I was about to be a dad. And so I didn't feel like I was setting a good example being this unhappy. It was to the point where Friday was over and I was already dreading getting up Monday morning. So the weekend I was anxious about it the whole time because I wasn't enjoying myself. So I said, okay, I had done some internet sleuthing, I guess, and when I was very young, and the internet was also young in those days, I had done some early Visual Basic stuff, some just regular basic. I had done the early days of HTML and then CSS and some very early on JavaScript. And so I was like, man, that was so fun. Maybe I should just try to do that. Can I make a job out of that? And so I looked around and that was the thing. So that's when in 2014, I was like, I'm gonna go down this path and I'm gonna try to do this whole career switch thing. My wife at the time was not, let's say she was nervous because she was, pregnant the whole time, and I was nights and weekends screaming at my computer. And then 2015 rolls around, and I literally started, I think, it was probably actually at the end of 2013 that I started really putting dedicated time and effort into, I need to learn this thing and I need to be good enough to get a job. And so I'd been doing this for a year at this point, and I finally felt like, okay, I'm close. I can be at least a junior engineer and try to get in doing this. The problem for me at the time was that I had been at Nielsen for 10 years. I had a career that I had risen through the ranks. I was making really good money, and we had a house and a mortgage and all that fun stuff. And I was like, I can't take a 50% pay cut. So not only did I have to teach myself, I had to be good enough to not be entry level. And so my way of doing that was, sorry, I like GIFs, so we're gonna get all the GIFs. I also love Jim Carrey. So my solution was that I'm gonna do too much stuff. I'm just gonna throw everything out there and burn myself out, but I'm going to burn the candle at both ends. I'm not gonna sleep much. I'm just gonna do everything. I'm gonna put myself out there. So the little orange squeeze thing, that is a Clementine.js is the thing I wrote. It was like a boilerplate project for a full stack application, aimed at people that were learning and it accompanied it, had a whole website that literally explained things step by step how they worked. And that was my way of learning and teaching. And so I had this to show that I knew how these things worked. Part of how I learned was this website, Free Code Camp, which is huge now. But at the time, it was just starting. And like I know the person that started Kinsey, I know him. I have his phone number. And he saw what I was doing. And for a long time, my website was part of their curriculum. And so that was cool. So my name's out there. People know me. And I have a community there that started, online community. But then, similar to what Casey was saying, that online community, a lot of times they would talk about going to events in their cities. And so I said, I'm going to start looking around. There's got to be something around here. There was a JavaScript group in Bentonville called NWA.js. They met at the community college. And it was run by a guy named Alan. And they met up there. So I was like, we're going to be Fayetteville.js, and we're going to meet down here. And there could be two groups. And, well, I started Fayetteville.js, and the first meetup was on June 30th, and it was an Angular versus React talk. That was myself and Josh McCormick, who was also a longtime friend of mine. We gave that talk. And Ryan, he's not here, but Ryan was there at the first one. And a month later, the NWA.js thing ceased to exist anymore. So I think he just got caught up and was no longer a thing. So I was glad I started it. And this is our first logo. We've always had little logo things that I've made, and this was the first one. I went back and found it. And then I started the Slack group, which everybody was in, at least at one point, I think. Slack at the time, of course, was just becoming a big thing, and it wasn't as bad as it is now then. It was the right decision at the time. I still believe that, but it was a way to, when we're not at the meetup, how can I ask questions? That was my motivation. Or how can I have a conversation with someone that came to the meetup and I don't want to ask them for their phone number? My ulterior motive in starting Fayetteville.js was to get a job, to meet someone that would meet me and I could get my foot in the door and get a job. And it did end up doing that. The very first meetup, 2 people came from RevUnit. One of those people ended up being my boss a couple months later. And so it worked out. The plan worked. A month before this, I went to Brews and Bites. And that's the first time I met Casey. And like you said, I think instant buds. When you become a community organizer, anyone else that has done this knows. You know how hard this is. And so, like he showed, our whole existence has been interwoven the whole time, both in Fayetteville. A lot of times our meetups were at their offices because I was not a business owner. I was working for the man the whole time. Sometimes the man was good, sometimes they weren't. But the relationship has always been good. And because of that, the sweet, sweet times of the Northwest Arkansas community was this period. The 2016, 2019, we went from having, I think, 30 members to over 800 in the group. And we were getting 30 to 50 people at the events, especially at the ones where we were giving technical talks. I think I did a Webpack talk, and it was packed at one of the offices. And
it's one of my favorite talks that I've ever seen.
I loved that talk. That was fun to do. And so it basically did this. We got to about 800 and it leveled off. But it was a growth period for the community as well. And man, when Casey's showing these pictures, which he may have said that I did a much better job at putting content together, he did a much better job at taking pictures because I have none. I literally have 0. But we were just having so much fun. That's what I remember about this period, is meeting new people, helping, hearing people's stories and being able to help them either get their foot in the door or just knowing someone. You're like, oh, someone's looking for a C# dev, and you know the guy, and you make that connection. That's so gratifying. And that is a key part of being a community, is being together and helping each other. And that's what, while my motives for fayetteville.js were very selfish in the beginning, it really turned into like, I made so many friends doing this. Like so many friends I have met through this that I still talk to. Obviously, me and Casey, and I've met Evan and Joseph and Austin and Retixman, the fayetteville.js. Like the people that I hear now in the audience are people that I've known for years at this point. And I think that it speaks to the legacy of what we have created. And this period was a crucial part of that when it really kind of exploded. And this was also when JavaScript was like, we're going to be everywhere. And I was, and that's my baby. So, so what happens is we get to 2020 and I say, okay, I've been doing this for 5 years. I can get some content together, and if no one's going to do it, the fallback for me was always, I'm going to give the talk. And if I was too lazy to do that, and some months you just don't have it in you, we're going to have a social event. And those are great too. But sometimes you just got to throw something together and that's it. But 2020 came around and I said, okay, I want to grow more, and I want to do more, and I want it to be more. So I said, okay, I'm going to rebrand. I'm going to create a new website, and this is me being a designer and all the iterations of me trying to figure out something that I was happy with, which I still wasn't happy with, but as an engineer, that's how it goes. I can't do the design. Me no make pretty, basically. Me just make work. And so lots of iterations, put signs together, got sponsors, literally cold called companies to give me money, and told them that they would be, they would have this. I had tiers. I really spent a lot of time putting it together. And we had a meetup, I think, January 2020. Oh, the timing. Sweet summer child. And I had sent out a survey asking people what they thought would be better, what they wanted to see out of the group, what they wanted that they weren't getting, and took all that feedback, and I was ready to hit the ground running. I was going to be serious this year. And we all know how that went. Everyone gave me money to do the thing, and the money sat in a bank account for 5 years. And I finally used it to pay myself back for all the meetup dues over that time. Because meetup is expensive, and we're going to get to that. But 2020, it was a shit show, let's be clear. And so what happened in 2020 was I had that first meetup, and I don't think we had one in February, and then March hit, and that's when people were like, you can't go anywhere anymore. And so we had, I think, 2 or 3 virtual events. They just weren't the same. And the attendance, I remember the last one we did was in I think it was May or June, and there were 2 people that showed up. And I was like, and I did the talk because I couldn't get anybody to give a talk. And so I was like, I'm burnt out too at that point. At that point, it took me a little bit longer, but I had had enough at that point. Casey talked about things being hard. Yeah, it is very hard. And at that point I said, I don't feel like doing this anymore. So we haven't had an event since 2020. I didn't try to pick up the pieces. People sometimes would come and comment in the group or, ask me, hey, are you going to do the thing again? And then in 2024, I was like, maybe I'm thinking about doing it again. But really, I didn't want to do it again without help. That I could, at this point in my career and life, I'm not where I was 10 years ago. I'm 10 years older. I'm an old man now. Old man Blake up here with the pictures. That is the thing I noticed first off. When Casey puts the pictures of me up there, the first thing I notice is that Blake has no gray in his beard. This Blake, I'm barely hanging on, buddy. Yeah. Every cuss word, one more. So I'm not doing a very good job. And so I did want to talk a little bit about this and why it's hard to mirror Casey's point and really hit it home. Meetup is the first thing that makes it hard. That thing sucks. It's hard to navigate. It's expensive. I don't know if you know how expensive it is. It's over $300 a year that I paid out of pocket for 10 years. And I don't get access to everyone's email address. So I can't just, when we do what we're gonna do here in a little bit, which we're gonna get to, I can't get everybody's email address and be like, hey, we're moving. Unless I pay more than what I pay now. They kind of nickel and dime you a lot.
Now they're trying to charge the user.
Yes.
I went in there to look at stuff.
Yes.
Like, oh, you want to see events on the calendar?
Exactly.
Me, premium for you.
It's really actually terrible for what you get. If it was, if the value was there, I wouldn't mind paying it, but the value is not there. Getting sponsors. Thankful for the U of A and having us here, and they're paying for food and the venue, which is amazing. And that as a community organizer, you cherish those moments, because if that doesn't happen, who pays for the pizza? Who pays for the food? We've had beer a couple times. Who pays for the beer? Yeah, the person doing it. It's out of pocket. And it's not written off. Now I write it off because I have a company, but it wasn't then. Yeah. So finding sponsors, getting people to give you money is a whole other thing. As an engineer, I don't like doing the sales thing, so I feel uncomfortable asking people for money, but that is part of it. The other thing is and Casey really alluded to this, the quiet majority. The majority of people come in, enjoy, and then leave, and don't provide any feedback, and sometimes they won't even talk to anyone, and they're not the ones up here giving talks by any means. But this is really the heartbeat of your community. These are the people that give you the numbers to drive you getting sponsors that make people want to come in. As you grow and people see that, 50 people are coming to this, the FOMO kicks in. I want to be there. What am I missing out on? This must be great. So you need these people, and I love these people, but they're not helping, right? And that is the thing about being a community organizer. You don't have many helpers. They're few and far between. In the 10 years that I've done this, 2 times someone offered to help. And one time someone offered to help, and they were like, but I don't have much time. And I was like, well, that's not much help, sorry. And the second time is we're here right now, because Joseph and Tyrell offered to help and said, let's do this together. And literally at no other time has anyone walked up and been like, hey, do you need any help with anything? And that's just how it goes. It is hard. So that speaks to the participation. The other thing is, in today versus 10 years ago, especially in Northwest Arkansas, we have so many pockets of communities now. Whereas before, in 2015-ish, it felt very much more distributed, and people cross-pollinated a lot more. So you didn't have the Walmart group, and you didn't have the JB Hunt group, and you didn't have the Tyson group. Everybody kind of mingled a lot more, and people were moving around a lot. Now and you throw in the 2020 stuff and so many people moving to remote work, people aren't going to things like this as much anymore. The nuclear explosion that I showed was not just a Northwest Arkansas phenomenon. This happened across the country. There are very few. In 2016 and 2017, I think I went to 4 different conferences, and they were all less than 200 people, regional. Like there was one in Nashville. All of them don't exist anymore. And 2020 killed them. And if you look around at groups like this, nationally, there's so many fewer now. People just aren't getting out and doing this as much anymore. And I love remote work. I work remote, and I wouldn't trade that for anything, the flexibility. But it doesn't help the community building aspect, because you don't have you're going to work and you're sitting next to the dude and you're like, hey, I'm going to this thing after work. We're going to have beers and pizza. You want to go? I don't have the experience of working next to a bunch of colleagues and guilt tripping them into giving talks at my thing, which was that was my playbook at Rev Unit. I don't have a talk in 2 months. Hey, Spruce. I'll give you $20 and a beer, a case of beer to give the talk, you know? And he's like, I guess I'll do it. And so finding content as part of that is also the most difficult part. Because again, at the end of the day, you're the person on the hook, and if it doesn't happen, it's your fault. If you don't have a talk, you're doing the talk. Or you're putting together a social thing. But if you do a social thing every time, it just becomes a social club, right? Like at some point you have to have technical talks as part of a engineering club. I don't know what else to call us. I don't want to call us a meetup. They can't own that word. But at some point you need people to get up in front of other people, which as introverted engineers is difficult. But before I move on to this group and to the YouTubes, I guess, the advantages of getting up here and being in front of people and speaking, I cannot tell you how, I can't enumerate the number of things that it gives you, but I'll give you a few. Being in front of people makes you look like an expert. Giving a talk and coming up with the content means you learn it better than you thought you did, and you learn where your gaps are. So when someone has a question, you either can answer it, or you're like, oh, I didn't think of that, and now you can go learn something new. But the positioning as the expert, I think I've had at least 2 jobs in this community where they did not interview me. And why did they not interview me? Because I get up here and talk about JavaScript. And they're like, that guy must know what he's fucking talking about, because he gets up there and talks about it for an hour. And even if I don't really know what I'm talking about sometimes, you kind of wing it, and people are like, that guy good. So lots of advantages in addition to those of getting up here and putting yourself out there, even if it is hard. I'm an introvert, and this wears me out. I'm gonna go home and cry after this, so. So that's kind of what got us right here, and I want to talk a little bit about where we're going. Last time I did this, there was a pandemic. Fingers crossed that doesn't happen again. There could be big changes that are coming, and the first of which is we're going to be one group. We've been alluding to this for a couple months now. The history has been intertwined. We're making it official. The 2 groups are going away. It will be one group. We are not focusing on one stack or one programming language. Anything goes. That's going to help with that content piece that we talked about, hopefully. Also, hopefully it helps us attract different people. I don't have much more to say there on that because I feel like that's been pretty clear where we're going, telegraphed. That's probably also been telegraphed, but the Slack group is essentially dead. No one talks. When I get the little report every month of what's going on in there, 95% of it is DMs. And it has the unfortunate effect of me not going back and being able to see a message that I sent to Casey 4 years ago. That sucks. I hate that. Slack wasn't built for communities. It was built for businesses, and then they doubled down into that. And now, it's Teams Lite. It's not quite that bad. Let's slow my roll a little bit. But there's not a community edition where, everybody gets in and you pay one low monthly price. It's $9 a person, no matter what. And we have, in our Slack group, we have hundreds. So I don't have that much money. I wish I made that much money, but I don't. And if I did, I'd probably spend it on something stupid. Let's be clear. So we're gonna move to Discord. There's gonna be a QR code and links and all that stuff later. It's a Discord. It's the same as the Slack group, but it is where we will be announcing all of the events going forward. All of the events will be on the website, which that will be here in just a moment. I'm going to cancel my the meetup membership, and I'm going to close both of the groups. Because the way that meetup works is if I step down, someone else can step up. But this isn't a the groups are dying, it's the groups are merging. So what is there is going to go away. I wish I could, we're gonna send communication on Meetup before this happens. We will send communication in the Slack group to everyone that isn't here, that it's shutting down. And that will also be shut down. Like it will not exist anymore. And so the events will be posted on the website and in Discord. And you should be able to RSVP from both of those going forward. Otherwise, it's just a Discord server and a website. And it's $0 a month to do those things, basically. A little bit more than that, but almost zero. This is the Discord server. If you want to get in, there's also a link on the website. If you go to the website, the bot that I spent 2 hours building, that is the administrator here that greets you when you get in. If it's broken, just let me know. I'll take care of it. I vibe coded it. Vibe coded it while I was doing real work. And so if you need this, I can go back to this slide. No big deal. And it's on the website. Like I said, there's a link to it at the bottom, same link. This is the website. I also built this. If it's broken, I'm sorry. If it doesn't look good, I'm not gonna put his name out there because it's going online. I have a friend that designed it, but it wasn't me this time. But this is the website. This is where all the events will be, and my hope is that this grows over time and the Discord grows over time to accommodate more of the community, because I know that there is still the Tech Summit thing happening, and sometimes they post things in the Slack group, but I'm hoping that, honestly, I'm kind of hoping that we have a little renaissance here of communities blossoming and smaller groups being created, and that we can have some sort of hub or community calendar where people can see what's happening every month and choose to go to. We'll see if that happens or not, but that's the goal. If I had a beer, I'd salute, but I don't. That's it, really. All of the changes that I spoke about, the Slack group and the meetup stuff, that's all going to happen the first week of January is when all that will be shut down. So another month, we'll post the message everywhere, let everybody get acclimated. Next month's event will be a social event in Fayetteville, holidays. We don't know where yet, I don't think, but we'll get that figured out and let everybody know as soon as we do. And then we'll have a technical talk in January. Okay, and probably another one in February. Excellent. And yeah, are there any questions about anything while I'm up here, I guess, with the microphone?
Are there any other straggling groups that need to know about this? Like, do you have any goal to try to converge anybody, any small group that's still left? Like, I know there's like a